Welcome back to Half the Battle. I'm your host, as always, Daniel Levy, your guest co-host, John Kelly. Today, we're going to be talking about UFC 274, Charles do Bronx Oliveira taking on Justin the Highlight Gaethje. And John, it's going down this Saturday night live in Arizona, Justin Gaethje's home state, trying to make the second time the charm, not the third time, the second time the charm to achieve undisputed UFC gold. But he's got a guy in front of him in Charles do Bronx Oliveira, who's the reigning, defending, undisputed UFC lightweight champion, the man with the most finishes in UFC history, the man with the most bonuses in UFC history, the man with most submissions in UFC history, taking on a guy in Gaethje who's had 9 fights inside the octagon and 10 bonuses. This is going to be chaos, Sean Kelly.
Yeah, man. First off, thank you for having me on. You know, we've been internet buddies for a while, but this is the first time we've actually got on a show together. So appreciate you having me on. But yeah, I'm just as excited as you are. I think it's going to be absolute fireworks in the main event and really up and down the card. A lot of good fights to talk about.
Oh, no questions asked, and the pleasure's all mine, my friend. So let's get down to business. Let's just talk about this main event to start things off. I mean, you got the champ, Charles do Bronx, 32-8. 40 pro fights. And that's all we know about John Kelly, because, oftentimes with the Brazilian fighters, a lot of untracked fights on the record. I bet this dude has got upwards of 50 to 60 fights that, a bunch of fights we don't know about, taking on a guy in Justin Gaethje. We know what to expect from Justin Gaethje. He's going to come out here, and he's either going to go, on his shield, or he's going to put someone out. And for that reason alone, this is one of those fights, you match these guys up 10 times, it's going to be a different outcome all 10 times. Now, the odds don't currently reflect that, because Charles do Bronx is -170. The comeback on Justin Gaethje is +150. When I think of a different outcome 10 times, I think of a pick'em. At the same time, I understand why the line is where it's at for Charles do Bronx being favored. But with that also being said, John Kelly, I understand why anybody on planet Earth would be tempted to take +150 odds on Justin Gaethje against anybody in the UFC lightweight division. And I say that Khabib's not on the roster anymore, guys, so I stand by what I said. +150 odds on Gaethje against anyone on the roster in the lightweight division. It's got to be tempting.
Yeah, not only is it tempting, I pulled the trigger on Justin Gaethje at +152 on FanDuel. So I am backing the underdog here. And it could be the fanboy in me, but I just think Gaethje has a real good chance to try at least hurt him on the feet early. Oliveira, nobody's discrediting his submission skills. You mentioned it, most submissions in UFC history, right? So he's obviously super dangerous, probably only needs one takedown to be able to cut through Gaethje on the mat. I just don't know if the takedowns are going to come as easily as they did against Khabib or for Khabib Nurmagomedov. But if Charles does get him down, I do think he could probably find a sub. But I just lean on the Gaethje side. Just Oliveira was dropped by Chandler, almost finishing that fight. And yes, he recovered, was dropped by Dustin Poirier early as well. Like, the guy just keeps getting hurt. He's been knocked out before as well. Like, if you're going to give me +150 odds on Justin Gaethje going up against a guy who can be hurt on the feet, and we know Gaethje's willing to die in there, like, I'm just going to take the shot on him. Not a big bet for me, just a standard 1-unit play, but I'm backing Justin Gaethje here, and I played the under as well at -152. The under 2.5. I just don't think I just think the way these guys match up, like, both of their strengths play into each other's weaknesses. Like, if Charles takes him down, like I mentioned, he probably finds a sub. Not super easy, but I think he does find a sub. And then on the flip side, if Gaethje's able to hurt him early, like, he can probably finish him and get him out of there. So I played the under 2.5 at -152 as well, and then I took the dog shot on Justin Gaethje on the money line.
Damn, my boy John Kelly already giving out them bets. I mean, this is one of those where I just see so many different outcomes occurring. If these two were to match up on a bunch of different occasions. I mean, I see, Justin Gaethje knocking out Oliveira, dropping Oliveira, hurting him. I mean, to your point, Michael Chandler, Dustin Poirier, both were able to land knockdowns on him. And let's not even bring up all the fights from the past. But we also can't ignore that Justin Gaethje's been hurt his fair share in his fights too. Whether we talk about the Tony Ferguson fight, the one moment Ferguson had at the end of the second round, whether we go back to his UFC debut against Michael Johnson, he was stumbling all over the place. Whether we go back to the World Series of Fighting days, now granted he's adjusted his style tremendously since those days, man, because back then, I really think it was kill or be killed with him, and it was more about being an entertainer than it was about being a world champion, even though he was the World Series of Fighting world champion. But what I'm trying to say here is that I felt like Justin Gaethje turned a corner in that Tony Ferguson fight. He's starting to pick his shots better. He's always going to fight with his balls and with his ego, but he toned it down a little bit. But when I say he toned it down a little bit, he didn't tone down the violence a little bit. It was just the tactics and the approach is what I like. So to me, it's like I can see either guy knocking out either guy. But what I can't see is I can't see Justin Gaethje coming out here and submitting Charles Oliveira. Like let's write that outcome off. That's something that's not going to happen in my mind. But on the feet, Charles do Bronx, offensively speaking, I think he's the perfect fighter. I mean, what do you not like offensively speaking? The hands are on point. The kicks, the knees. He uses his length really, really well. And it used to be a case where, you pulled guard and sweeps and stuff like that. But the way he's taking the back from standing, not just from taking someone down and transitioning to the back, he'll pin you up against the fence and take your back right there. He'll back you. And now you're seeing blast double legs from Charles Oliveira. You're seeing body lock takedown. He went in there against Tony Ferguson, and he did exactly what Chimaev did to Li Jingliang. Had a body lock, walked him to the other side of the cage, and dropped him on his head. So, I mean, I love the evolution of Oliveira, but here's the thing about Charles that I got to say. Since he made his UFC debut against Darren Elkins, we always knew we had a phenom in front of us. I mean, it was pretty goddamn evident. I mean, you saw that triangle to armbar submission that he had on Elkins, and then when he beat Escudero in his second fight, like now, Escudero, big whoop, dude. At the time, Escudero was their Mexican poster boy. At the time, they had Bud Light stamped all over him. At the time, he was doing those tours in Mexico. He just couldn't hold up his end of the bargain, but that was a big win against the former Ultimate Fighter winner. And the reason I bring this up is because that's when we took note that this kid is a phenom. It was just a thing where the mental had to catch up with the physical. And that's something we're going to talk about with Rose Namajunas as well, because it used to be a case where Charles do Bronx could run you through the series. And what I mean by the series is go watch that fight with Paul Felder. I mean, Darce to Anaconda to guillotine to back take to this to that. And he survived. And Charles was like, fuck, I guess tonight's not my night. And, he got pounded out. But I'm seeing the mental catch up. And my examples for that, my proof is, look at that David Tamor fight. I mean, the way he got dropped in that fight and just got up like it was nothing was like, is that all you got, young man? Those are things that we wouldn't have seen from Charles Oliveira in the past. His 2 title fights against Michael Chandler. Back in the day, I mean, do you remember the Cub Swanson fight, that delayed reaction knockout? Do you remember the Max Holloway fight when people were accusing Charles Oliveira of faking an injury, and then 2 days later it came out and he was completely fine? I can confidently say that those days are behind us, man, because the title fights did get dropped by Chandler, who's one of the hardest hitters at lightweight, did get dropped by Poirier, who's got the most knockouts at lightweight, and gets back up. And when it's his turn to impose his will, look the fuck out. So it's pretty amazing to see the complete package. But that being said, I mentioned the offensive stuff. It's defensively where I'm concerned, John Kelly, because, I mean, we're dealing with a guy who not the most head movement, stands straight up in the air. And as a result of being a long fighter, not only is he there to be hit upstairs, what about downstairs against the best kicker in UFC lightweight history? And don't even try me on no Edson Barboza, who I got all the admiration for, but Edson Barboza, Justin Gaethje fought. Guess who got off on 3 calf kicks in the first 10 seconds of that fight to kind of cement that, hey, I'm the best kicker in the division. So I'm just curious about the approach here. The reason I can't take a confident stance is because I see a different outcome every single time these guys fight. I see Justin Gaethje chopping him down with those leg kicks and maybe compromising him to the point where Oliveira can't go for those entries. You know, they're coming from a mile out. He starts to pull guard, and Justin Gaethje signals him to get back up, and from there he can take more damage. But I also see Charles Oliveira taking his back and choking him out. And let's not forget that Gaethje, you know, he's willing to give it. He can also take it too. But sometimes when he takes it too, he's wobbling all over the place. Charles Oliveira can knock people out too. So I don't fucking know. And usually when I don't know, I take the dog, but I kind of lean with the favorite here because I think he's got more paths to victory. But this is not one that I want to debate with you. Reason being is that, like I said at the beginning, you give me plus 150 odds on Gaethje against anyone in the division, and that's all you got to tell me. Kind of like back when I bet on Dustin Poirier against Max Holloway the second time, and he was plus 185. To me, it's not about, oh, who do I think is going to win? To me, it's about you give me those odds on Dustin against anybody not named Khabib, and I'm in. So I feel where you're coming from, John Kelly.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, I think I agree with basically everything that you said there. And I think a lot of that analysis just keeps pointing me to the under there. That's why I like the under so much, because I could see the submission for Oliveira. And I agree, you know, it's funny. You mentioned the evolution in his game. It's really the striking that has come a long way. You know, back in the day, it was just the submission skills you had to worry about. And now it's the hands as well. He's so dangerous wherever the fight goes. And if that defense does fail him and he gets dropped, he's able to just sit there and wait because people don't want to go play in his guard. So he's able to recover like we saw in the Chandler and Poirier fight. So yeah, it's definitely a fun dynamic, one that I think is going to be a firefight. And I don't think it's going to disappoint us this weekend.
Dude, how is this going to disappoint us? I mean, neither guy's going to be humping either guy's leg. Neither guy's going to be pinning one up against the fence, and the crowd's going to be booing. Like I said, Justin Gaethje's had 9 UFC fights. He's got 10 bonuses. Let me know the last time someone booed during a Justin Gaethje fight. I think we're absolutely spoiled, not to mention the record-setting performance bonuses that Charles do Bronx has. All these records he has. It's just... This is one of those fights where you call your friends that don't often watch the sport and you tell them, hey, this is one you got to come over for. This is one you got to watch. This is one that could get you, you know, they talk about like the UFC bug. You never saw it before. You watch one of those good events when it's really on point. Like, remember that London card with Aspinall and Arnold Allen? Like, if you brought one of your buddies over who's never seen UFC before and that was the first fight they were exposed to, they're automatically hooked. The bug hit them. This main event is that fight. So, I mean, unless it's like some fluke injury that, you know, or some bullshit, but not, knock on wood, that's not going to be the case here. So, yeah, I mean, I'm passionate about the fight. I'm just not passionate about a pick because I could legit see either guy win this fight, and that's just the bottom line. But I do wish you luck because, again, plus 150 on a guy like Justin Gaethje, I mean, you're not going to, like, what am I about to tell you here? Like, oh, don't take odds on a world-class fighter, like, you know, that has the capability to win. I mean, and we talk about, you know, the knockout power. We talk about the calf kicks. You know, this guy's a former D1 wrestler. I mean, so he's coming home here to Arizona, and I know last time in Arizona, things didn't go his way against Poirier, but let's not sit here and act like that wasn't like one of the fights of the year. Let's not sit here and act like Dustin Poirier wasn't badly compromised from those leg kicks. And let's not act like if they ran it back. I mean, I'm not saying that Justin would win. I'm not saying that Dustin would win. I'm just saying it would be a honest knock. It would be a serious fight. Just like this one could go either way each time. Like, I just don't see it being a case where they fight, you know, 10 times and Charles wins 9 of those times, right? It's just not that. So in that sense, bro, I think that you got good line value and I wish you the best. But as a pure pick, I will side with the champ, but I don't have my money down on this fight. You know, so good luck to you on this one.
Much appreciated, man.
Absolutely. So before we move on to the co-main event, are there any points and things that we haven't quite touched on this main event that you think needs to be said that we're missing here? Any bases we haven't covered?
I think we pretty much covered it from all angles. You know, I think it's a pretty straightforward fight. You know, most people are expecting either Oliveira has success with the submission or Gaethje probably hurts him on the feet. It's just a pretty straightforward fight in my eyes.
But Okay, so now let's dig deep into what you just said. Or Gaethje hurts him on the feet. But just because Gaethje hurts him on the feet doesn't necessarily mean the fight's going to be over after that. Right. That's what's so intriguing. Like, is Oliveira going to be so compromised that it affects his game to the point where now we start seeing him resort to his old tactics to, where he decided, maybe I can just live the fight another day. See, because that was always the criticism on him. That was the criticism on Rose Namajunas too. But I feel like, again, I know I'm repeating myself, but I do feel like the mental's caught up with the physical with both those fighters. And it's truly amazing to see because they've always been supremely talented and skilled in every area of the game. You just wanted them to believe what we've seen since day one. And I think now we are seeing them believing what we've seen since day one. It's just a guy as dangerous as Gaethje, a guy, when you hear Gaethje talk, I mean, and he says he's willing to die in there. I know for some people that's hyperbole, and I know certain people will throw out terms like that. And you remember that episode of The Ultimate Fighter a long ass time ago? This French dude actually said he wanted to show that, French guys have warrior spirit, and then he quit on the stool between rounds. Like, this isn't going to be one of those cases. Like, these guys are like Justin Gaethje literally is willing to die inside that cage. And guys, we don't want no one to die. We're just kind of talking metaphorically speaking of the chaos and the hell that this guy's willing to go through to get his desired outcome. That being said, you lock on a deep Mata Leon rear naked choke on him, and I'm not convinced that he's not going to go to sleep. I'm not convinced that he's not going to tap out. So, dude, I just have to sit back and enjoy this one as a fan. DraftKings perspective, though, I want exposure to both. No questions asked. Upside, huge upside on both. Come on, let's be real.
Yeah, I'm with you. The way I basically am playing it is like if you play 10 lineups, like I'm heavier on the Gaethje side, so I'm probably going to do like 6 out of 10, and I'll play more than 10 lineups, but just an example, I'll probably do 6 Gaethje and then 4 Oliveira. That's the way I'm going to split it, just because I obviously see the upside for both guys in a victory.
Now, narrative-wise, Justin Gaethje has been calling Charles Oliveira a quitter, which we've seen that, maybe 10 fights ago, and it was real. I mean, you can't deny that Paul Felder fight. You can't deny the Cowboy Cerrone fight, the Cub Swanson fight, like the Max Holloway fight. It's happened, but it happened long-ass time ago. Can Justin Gaethje bring that back out of him? Or is it more of a case, if he's going to come out here and beat him, he's going to beat him fair and square and knock him unconscious to where it's not a matter of quitting?
That's the way I see it playing out, is if Gaethje does win, for starters, I rate Gaethje's finishing ability more so than I do, a Michael Chandler. You saw when Chandler dropped him, he went to follow him down, and that was really what ended up being a major mistake. I think Gaethje at least has the wherewithal to let him up and then go back and go for the kill. Like I don't think Gaethje's gonna just dive in his guard chasing a finish unless like Oliveira is really compromised. So I think Gaethje will probably just have to put him out. I don't think it's going to be a case where Oliveira quits per se.
Agreed. So Dominic says, smash the like button. Everybody, do us that huge favor. Smash that like button. Hit the subscribe button. We truly appreciate y'all doing that. And my boy, Teron Brown, said, Daniel, are you celebrating Cinco de Mayo today? I remember you saying you're part Mexican. Actually, Cinco de Mayo is an American holiday. They actually don't really celebrate that in Mexico, but I mean, that's not going to stop me from going out with my friends and having a good time. So yeah, we'll be having some fun, but we got to make the distinction here. It's an American made holiday, and hey, I'm not going to complain about an extra day to have some fun. So yeah, we'll be doing it up for sure. So I think we got this main event out the way, and without further ado, let's get down to the co-main event, because next up, for the strawweight belt, we got the champ, Rose Namajunas. She's 11-4, taking on Carla Esparza, who was 18-6, the former champion. And you know what's interesting about this before I mention the odds? The first ever UFC strawweight title fight was Rose Namajunas versus Carla Esparza. And if the world ends tomorrow, the last ever UFC strawweight title fight is Rose Namajunas versus Carla Esparza. So it's pretty amazing how it's come full circle. And currently they got it. Rose Namajunas minus 220. The comeback on Carla is plus 180. Now, I do agree with Rose being favored. However, do I agree with her being favored to this extent? That's where we got to talk about this, because listen, Carla's come a long way, man. I mean, the run she's on currently, John Kelly, I mean, when you go out there and you beat this current form of Alexa Grasso, who's just been running through people, who's been coming out here looking impressive, this current form of Marina Rodriguez, who I think at the very least is going to fight for a title one day, beat this current form of Yan Xiaonan, who I've highly regarded for a long time. That's how you earn a title shot. This isn't, oh, she eked a split over Angela Hill and we're just going to hand her a title shot and act, and just put up another. Because sometimes, from time to time, you run out of contenders, so they just got to get somebody to fill the void. This is not a fill the void type fight. This is the true number one contender, someone who happens to have a win, not just a win, a finish win over the current champ, but it was back in 2014. It's 2022 now. Times have changed. So how do you kind of see this one going down? Because I think we can agree on a few things. I think we can agree on the fact that Carla Esparza is going to land takedowns in this fight, but we can also agree on that this is a 5-round fight. Just because she lands a takedown or two does not necessarily mean the fight is going to be over right then and there. What kind of adjustments can Rose make down the stretch? And is this going to be more of a low stance from Rose Namajunas, no kicks at all because she doesn't want to get those kicks caught, and fully focused on the boxing where she does have a big advantage, Sean Kelly?
Yeah, I'd be surprised if she changed the game plan, at least to that extent, just because her kicking game is one of her biggest strengths. Like, she's, for my money, one of the most technical strikers in the division, if not the very most. So I think on the feet is very obvious. Thug Rose is going to have a massive striking advantage. I think she could potentially hurt Carla on the feet. If Carla doesn't go to the wrestling, or if she can't get the wrestling going, I think she's liable to get knocked out here. But the thing is I think those takedowns are going to be there for Carla Esparza. I do expect her to land takedowns. I know obviously both of these fighters have made a ton of improvements, but honestly, the takedown defense of Rose Namajunas really hasn't improved all that much over the last 8 years or so. She was taken down 5 times by Weili Zhang in that last fight, and I know she wasn't really controlled a ton, and she's obviously very active. She's got a very active guard. She's looking to sweep, looking for submissions. So it's always possible she can maybe find something after a Carla takedown, but I think for the most part, I expect the takedowns to be there. I expect Esparza to stay safe in top position. I just worry about her getting hurt on the feet. But to your point, like at this price, I'm willing to take the chance. Like, I haven't bet it yet because I'm just kind of waiting. But I am going to be betting Carla Esparza. I just haven't done it yet. I'll be backing her at the money line though, just because I think, basically just the wrestling, you give me this odds, similar to that last matchup that we talked about. You give me this big of a number on a fighter who I know is going to land takedowns, not just one, but I expect her to land 3-4 takedowns minimum in this fight. And so if that's the case, then, I feel like I have probably the better minute winner, at least the way this fight plays out. And I just need to avoid her getting finished by Rose, which I'm willing to take that chance at plus 180 odds.
Well, the part that we agree on is takedowns will be landed by Carla Esparza, no questions asked. But 5 rounds, here's what I'm concerned about from your end. And firstly, plus 180 odds. I mean, that's unless Carla gets head kick knocked out in the first round. I mean, it seems like you got an honest shot here with odds like that. But I don't think that just because she gets one takedown that the fight's going to be over shortly after. This is not Damian Maia versus Lyman Good, where one back take and let's go ahead and go home. I think this is going to be an honest fight. So I could see situations where Carla Esparza does get the takedowns and she does grind out Rose for that round. That round goes to Carla. But then I see other situations where Carla might get a takedown, Rose gets back up, lights her up on the feet, or even Rose lands more significant strikes, gets taken down. What do the judges favor more? Do they favor the top control? Do they favor the damage landed? And then you go back to the Marina Rodriguez fight, and it should have been a 30-27 for Carla Esparza, but she had some questionable in-fight decision-making that not just cost her rounds, John Kelly, but cost her a lot of damage. I mean, you remember when she dropped back for that leg lock, which it's like, Carla, like, listen, I'm not the one in there, so it's easy for me to criticize, but like maybe she saw an opening for a finish, but like Carla, all you had to do was stay on top of a Marina for another minute, and instead she drops back for a leg lock and gets her face smashed. So, little things like that not questionable fight IQ, but questionable decision making from time to time might cost her. Not to mention, if down the stretch the takedowns are tougher to come by, that's when the damage can start to accumulate, and that's where I could see it swaying in Rose Namajunas' favor. So I really think this is a round by round cases here, round by round basis. Excuse me, like. Every round is going to count for so much here, like especially if there's no finish, because like I said, I see big moments happening on either side, man. And let me ask you this too. Okay, so we both agree that Carla is going to get takedowns here, but are we expecting Carla to kind of just, lay in her guard, kind of win that round 10-9, or are we expecting it like the Yan Xiaonan fight where like people are getting brutalized? Like, because there's a fine line between the two.
Yeah, so I think early in the fight, it's going to be more of that lay and pray, stay safe type of game plan. But as the fight goes on, I know Namajunas trains in Colorado, but, she tends to fade a little bit, especially in these extended fights. Like, I could see it being where Carla gets more aggressive in the later rounds if she is in those favorable positions. So it's kind of like I see her playing more of a safe game plan early and then getting more aggressive with it late. But yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. I wanted to ask you, though, like, because you mentioned you feel like the mental aspect has come a long way for Namajunas, like it has for Charles Oliveira. I fully buy into the Charles Oliveira side of that. I'm not sure if it really has for Rose. Like, are we just saying that just because she's winning, or is it like you know what I mean? Like, I just feel like she's always kind of had a bit of question marks in terms of the mental. She's saying I'm the best, like walking up to the octagon and stuff like that. Like, I don't know, man. I just feel like that's another, like, obviously you can't quantify that type of stuff, but I just feel like that's another variable where it's like maybe she doesn't come in here with her A game. And if she doesn't come in here with her A game, then I do think Esparza is a very live underdog in this fight.
Well, I think the proof is that, you look at that second Andrade fight and just mentally knowing that this girl slammed you on your head and knocked you unconscious, and you don't often see out cold KOs in that division. Unless Rose is giving them to people, right? Like, she's got a couple knockouts on her own. So to overcome that adversity, come back, win the next fight, that's one example. Another example, the last fight against Weili. Now, take away who you scored the fight for, but what we can agree on is as the fight progressed, it started to get closer. The first 2, maybe 3 rounds, kind of, Zhang was doing her thing. But as the fight progressed, I started to see those adjustments from Rose Namajunas. I even saw her go out there and land a takedown of her own. So I actually do fully believe that, she believes that she's the champ and the best. And the reason I bring that up is because if you go back like many years and listen to some of my old podcasts, like, dude, we were harsh on Rose Namajunas about this stuff, man. Like, I mean, I cashed plus 215 on Karolina Kowalkiewicz against Rose in Atlanta at UFC 201. It's just one of those things where in this specific fight, every minute is going to count. And I know that's such a like broad thing to say, such a black and white thing to say, but like, it's true, man. I mean, like, if Carla gets those 4 minutes of top control first round and Rose doesn't have much offense, that round's going to Carla. But let's say Carla gets an early takedown round 2, Rose pops back up, lands some serious shots, and then maybe Carla gets another takedown at the end. One judge might have it one way, 2 judges might have it the other way. Like, so there's going to be a lot of iffy moments that you're not quite sure. Now, to your credit, in a fight like that where you're not sure and it's plus 180, that's the side you want to be on. So from a bet, I completely understand. It's just from a pure pick, that's where I kind of think that, there can be adjustments to be made, because I kind of only think there's one way for Carla to win this fight. And that's not to discredit her, but it has to be on the mat. Like, I don't think Carla's going to come out here establishing her jab, get off on some calf kick game, drop Rose Namajunas. Like, those are things I'm writing off. Whereas I do think Rose can establish her jab, maybe get off on calf kicks on her own. But here, let me bring this up. Speaking of kicks, one thing that cost her in the last Weili fight, even though she won, was that if you watch their first fight, well, how did she win the first fight? She won the first fight with a head kick knockout. So she went back to the kicks the second time, but Weili came in prepared to catch those kicks and take her down. Now I'm curious if Carla kind of stays away from the kicks, follows the Joanna game plan, has that low stance, and is just kind of boxing only, no kicks, which will probably lead to less opportunities for the takedowns. Now, I still think Carla's going to get takedowns regardless, but the least opportunities you can give her, the better.
Yeah, I was going to say that it's possible. Like I said, I doubt she alters her game plan that much just because the kicking game is such a big part of her overall striking. But also, like, you look at not all of the takedowns that Weili was able to land. You know, she was in on double legs. And I just think Carla's going to be able to get them. To your point, though, like, for sure, it probably gives her less of an opportunity to get those takedowns. But I just think if she's able to close distance and get into that clinch, I think she's going to be able to have a lot of success. And I think the wrestling is going to be there for Carla.
Now, do you view Carla's path to victories as anything else than a decision? Like, can you see a finish here?
I think so. And I wanted to bring it up to you because I've been kind of warming up to the under in this fight. Like, I don't know the exact price. I don't have it in front of me. I think it's like
under what? Under 4.5?
I think there was a let me see. Now I'm going to pull it up. I was looking the under 4.5 is plus 155. And I was kind of warming up to that just because it's like, I do think Rose is super live for a finish. Like I said, if Carla, for whatever reason, can't get the wrestling going, which, like I said, I think she does. But even the times where Rose does pop back up or where they are, you know, every fight starts out on the feet. You know, I think Rose could hurt her on the feet. But also, like, we know Esparza did submit her on the Ultimate Fighter. I know it was forever ago, but like, I don't think she's drawing dead to a decision here. Like, I think if Rose starts to fade, if Carla's getting a lot of favorable positions on the mat, you know, extended, you know, into the 20th minute or whatever in this fight, I think Carla could finish as well.
Now, let me say this as far as under 4.5s at dog money. I haven't ran the numbers in like a year or two, but back when I ran them, those had the highest hit rate of any over-unders. The under 4.5s at dog money were money. Really? Money. So, yeah, I'm not going to talk you off of that. I guess the reason people would be hesitant to get involved in that is because of Carla Esparza's style, right? But every fight is different. The first time these two fought, it did end inside the difference, but it did end inside the distance. But that being said, no two fights are created equally. And Rose Namajunas is actually gotten 100% rate of winning rematches. And we got three examples. We got Joanna and me bringing this up. Here are two examples I'm trying to cover. I'm trying to cover that the outcome was different each time, but that she won the rematch each time. So just to say that, you know, no two fights are created equally. You know, against Joanna, knocks her out in the first round. Second time, goes all 5 rounds. Against Weili, knocks her out in the first round. Next time, goes all 5 rounds. Against Jessica, gets slammed on her head in the second round. Next time, goes all 3 rounds. So no two fights are created equally. And while I do see Carla having her moments, I don't think it's going to be that pillar-to-post domination it was the first time in 2014. That's for sure. That being said, I do see Carla Esparza having her moments as well. So who's going to have the bigger if there's no finish in this fight, who's going to have the bigger moments? That's what I want to know, and that's what I think determines this fight. Is this top control going to outweigh some potential damage and big moments from Rose Namajunas? So it's an intriguing fight, my man. I mean, when we have questions like that, it's dog or pass. And when I bet on Rose, I like betting her at, I forgot what the odds are. I'm guessing like plus 140 to plus 160 against Joanna in the rematch when she beat her the first time. That I liked. Rose against Weili plus 105 in the rematch when she beat her the first time. That I liked. But then there's been times when I've gone out there and faded Rose and lost. I faded Rose in the second Andrade fight, and I lost. And with Carla, I've had mixed results as well. I went out there and cashed a plus 240 on Randa Marcos against Carla, but then I go back and lose on Xiaonan and Marina Rodriguez. So mixed results on both for me. So this is another one I'm going to sit back on. I would take Rose. If a pick 'em fight, I'd take Rose. Maybe minus 150. I'd consider it, but I just don't want to lay chalk. Like, I'd like to take Rose at dog odds. So I wish you the best on this one, man. I mean, I don't have a bet on Rose here, so my pure pick is Rose, but I think you have sound logic and reasoning for taking the dog shot, and I do think she's got a chance to win this fight.
Absolutely, man. And for what it's worth, that's probably what I would line the true odds at, is like Rose maybe minus 145 or minus 150, somewhere in that range. So there is a little bit of edge on Carla currently.
Yes, sir. So featured bout in the lightweight division, we got Michael Chandler, the former Bellator champion. He's 22-7, taking on Tony El Cucuy Ferguson, the former UFC interim lightweight champion, who's 25-6. And currently, they got it. You ready? You ready for this?
Oh, it's big.
Michael Chandler minus, depends where you look. I see a minus 425. I see a minus 526. The comeback on Tony El Cucuy Ferguson is plus 300. It's just, John Kelly, are we getting the real El Cucuy? Like, you know what I mean? Like, are we getting the real El Cucuy? Because what I've been seeing from him lately is not reminiscent of the guy we all know and love. It sounds like a bitter old fighter who, look, we talk about narratives, put stock into it, don't put stock into it, but I don't like the way he's talking. And usually when they talk like that, I make good money against them. Unfortunately, I can't make good money laying minus 400. So I think it comes down to, how's this first round going to go? How much damage is Chandler going to land? Because Chandler's hell on wheels in that first round, and he pushes such a pace, fires out the gate. Tony Ferguson's there to be hit. Even in his prime, he was out there getting dropped. He was just able to come back and break guys. Now, that scenario is live here because Chandler does slow down as fights progress. Not because he's not in shape, not because he's not putting in his road work, but because the guy goes 100 miles per hour. John Kelly, if me and you get in a sports car right now, we ride 100 miles per hour on the highway, do you think our gas tank is going to get better as we keep going on these miles? It's obviously going to get worse. That's just how this shit works. So can Michael Chandler not fucking go into this zombie mode in these second and third rounds where Tony Ferguson could potentially break him down the stretch?
Yeah, this one, it's tough because I'm a big Michael Chandler fan. And back in the day, obviously everybody was a big Tony Ferguson fan. But it's just the way these two match up. Like you mentioned it, like we all favor Chandler in this spot. But do we favor him a minus 425? Like, I think that line, for sure, I agree that it's wide, but on the flip side, like I have no interest in backing this version of Tony Ferguson. You asked if are we getting the real Tony Ferguson? Sadly, I think this is the real Tony Ferguson in 2022. Like, as sad as that is to say, like he's just not the same guy. Like we saw it with so many fighters over the course of their career, where you see the drop off becomes pretty gradual the older they get and the more miles on or the more tread on their tires, using your analogy with the race car. But now it's just like, it seems like it's just fallen off a cliff, like in terms of the durability, even the fight IQ. Like he's out there throwing sand. Like, I mean, I don't trust his fight IQ. I don't trust his fighting style. And in this matchup against Chandler, you mentioned it, like Chandler's super dangerous in the first round. Can he get him out of there early? I don't want to bet on that. Like, I know some people maybe take the round one prop on Chandler. Like, I'm not doing that personally because Ferguson is still super tough. Like, yes, I do think the durability is starting to go, but like, even after taking an absurd, a life-changing amount of damage from Justin Gaethje, he was still standing into the fifth round of that fight. And it was basically just like, he just took one too many, where he did the chicken dance like 5 different times. Like, his brain is just like, I mean, really shutting down. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw like a Shane Burgos style of knockout here. And I don't want to see that style of knockout. Exactly. I don't want to see that. But I think if he gets knocked out, it would have to be like something along those lines. So it's just not something I'm going to bet on. I obviously favor Chandler to win because even if he doesn't find that round one finish, I do think, yes, he tends to fade a little bit, but I do think he can go back to that wrestling base. He comes from a high-level wrestling background. We saw Ferguson in his last 2 fights completely dominated, not only by the champ Charles Oliveira, but Beneil Dariush in that next fight as well. So I think that's a very clear game plan for Michael Chandler. Who knows if he's going to fight the smartest, because I do expect him to come out here and try to take Ferguson's head off. But I just like the fact that he has the wrestling to fall back on if he needs to.
What's crazy is that you hear Michael Chandler talk, and he's such an intelligent, well-spoken individual. and then sometimes in the fight you see the complete opposite of that.
Oh yeah.
Like even in wins, man. Okay, so you remember the Brent Primus fight. Okay, the first one, with the injury, whatever. But they rematch, right? And it's a domination by Chandler, but he's still out there getting dropped by jabs. There's still moments that shouldn't be happening on his opponent's side, and you just don't want to see that moment where, he takes Ferguson down and Ferguson slices him open with an elbow from bottom. You get a cut stoppage, or just little things like that. So yeah, he's going to be coming firing out the gate, and he's going to have a big speed advantage. Tony's there to be hit. Tony's slowed down significantly these last few fights. I mean, it's been getting ugly, man. I mean, Beneil Dariush, people just talk about, Beneil laid on him, which is not what happened. Beneil was out there landing Dutch Thai kicks. I say Dutch Thai too. He was going out there landing kickboxing combos to both legs, man. He was out there styling on Michael Chandler, man, and the submission attempts weren't even close. I said he was styling on Chandler. I meant he was styling on Ferguson. Yep. Even the Darce attempt that Ferguson had was nowhere near the ones that he used to have back in the day. I just don't see the same guy. I think the line reflects that. So I'm just not interested in getting involved. At the beginning of the week, I was thinking, maybe a 0.5 unit shot on Ferguson just because of these odds. But to me, I'm just gonna sit back and pass, man. I'm not interested.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm just gonna hit a pass. I saw some people interested in the over 1.5. I don't mind that look, but I'm with you, man. I'm gonna pass. I'm gonna enjoy it. I hope it's a fun fight, but yeah, I'm not gonna put any money on this one.
I mean, as far as over 1.5, logically speaking, I get the reasoning 100%, but one thing that I like to talk about is these things don't get better. These things get worse. So what I mean by that is we could start to see Ferguson get knocked out in the first round. And it could even be a spot where he gets dropped and, he starts crying early stoppage. They're trying to look out for his health. So you never know, man. And Chandler, one thing about him, that early going, the young man can crack, make no mistake about it. So you got to favor Chandler here. Do you favor him to this extent? A couple of years ago, I wouldn't favor him to this extent. It's just, do I now in 2022 when we've seen how many rounds in a row of Ferguson losing? And it's kind of to bring up the Woodley talk. Look, I know Ferguson and Woodley fight nothing alike. Woodley throws one strike every 2 hours. But what I'm trying to say is they've lost how many rounds in a row, right? There hasn't, besides that one punch Gaethje landed in round 2 of the Ferguson fight, he hasn't had a single moment in any of these fights. Ferguson, that is.
Yeah, and I think it's 11 straight rounds that he's dropped. I put no faith in him. To your point, I don't favor Chandler this much. I do think the line is wide here. I just have zero interest in betting Tony Ferguson on the other side.
A comment here was, the Burn says Chandler is chinny with no gas after 5 minutes, and Ferguson is old. I know that's the interesting thing. It's what are we gonna see past the first round if it gets there? Because in old times, it would have been a situation where that's when Tony Ferguson turns up. That's when Tony Ferguson goes out there and breaks guys. I mean, you watch that Anthony Pettis fight, and Anthony dropped him in that first round, but by the end of the fight, I mean, he had Anthony up against the fence and Tony was teeing off. And, man, when Tony starts getting in his flow, it's a beautiful thing to watch. We'll talk about Donald Cerrone when he gets in his flow. It's just, is he capable of tapping into that version of himself in this current form? So that's what remains to be seen, John Kelly. Now, next up, in the light heavyweight division, we got another rematch, this time between Ovince St. Preux OSPs 25-16 taking on Mauricio Shogun Rua, or as we like to say in Brazil, John Kelly, Mauricio Shogun. He's 27-12, and currently they got it. Ovince St. Preux minus 250. The comeback on Mauricio Shogun is plus 205. So since the time their first fight happened, I believe OSP's had upwards of 20 fights. The dude's been fighting nonstop, and Shogun's such a legend. And I gotta just be honest, I'm a Shogun fanboy, man. I mean, I grew up watching this guy. Guys, this is a long time ago, so I know it sounds stupid, but and it was stupid, but I picked Shogun to beat John Jones. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'll see myself out. You know what I mean,
yeah,
John Kelly?
I actually gotta go, bro. Sorry.
Yeah. So, I mean, but that being said, the way the first fight played out, I could see it going a different way this time, man. Like, it's just that, like, I know Shogun, he can still give it to an extent. I just know he can't quite take it anymore like he used to. And it's going to be sad when I'm betting on him and he's landing some big shots on OSP. And then one shot from OSP and Mauricio is wobbling all over the place. And then he's completely gassed out by the time the second round rolls around. But let's not sit here and act like Ovince St. Preux, like he's got the best process to his game. Not to discredit him because he's been in the UFC a long ass time. But I truly believe that he's gotten away with a lot of things just based off the kind of athlete he is. And when I say things like that, it really sounds like I'm discrediting his hard work or this or that. But like, I don't see OSP fighting behind a jab. Like, I don't see OSP having the best volume. I just see OSP kicks hard, punches hard, athletic, mixes in takedowns. You go on a guillotine, you don't let go of that guillotine. You know what's coming. That fucking Von Flue is coming. So he's got opportunistic finishing ability, but I actually think Shogun's got the much better process. And if Shogun's not badly compromised in this fight, I think there's a chance he can come out here and win as a dog. Am I confident? No. Look at the version of Shogun we're dealing with. It's just I could see it happening. I really could.
That's the thing. You say if he's able to not be compromised. The problem is that's such a massive if in this
such
fight.
A massive if.
And I don't put much faith in the St. Preux side either, because I think he's a little bit washed, honestly. Like, I bet against him multiple times in this bad streak that he's had. He's lost 5 of his last 7 fights between heavyweight and light heavyweight. And let's not forget, he struggled to make 205. He missed. Didn't he miss last time he cut to 205? Didn't he miss weight?
Yeah, exactly. I'm glad you brought that up. He missed weight against Jamal Hill, had the stints at heavyweight where he looked atrocious, and now he's dropping back to 205.
Dropping back to 205. So keep an eye out on the scales tomorrow, but we'll see, man. I don't rate St. Preux high whatsoever. Like, even when he was fighting, the Ben Rothwell fight and all those, like, I still didn't want to touch him there. I faded him a couple times, like I said. On the flip side, I might have more concerns about Shogun Rua's durability, just because he's been knocked out 6 times in his career. You mentioned it seems like basically every strike that lands seems to be hurting this guy. So this is like, my initial thought was 1-800-GAMBLER if you want to place any money on this fight. But then I looked at some of the props and I'm like, am I really going to put some money on this fight? Because I saw a St. Preux by knockout on FanDuel was plus 250. And I'm like, I feel like that's probably a decent bet, but I don't know if I want to be that guy to chase a knockout prop in a fight that I think is going to be really sloppy on both sides. To your point, I do think Shogun Rua is more talented. It's just, I don't know if I can trust him to stay alive here. And then on top of that, he is going to be fighting the bigger fighter. So I don't know how much wrestling success he's going to have against St. Preux, which I think he probably needs to win this fight.
And mentally speaking, one thing I want to bring up is that, OSP might not be out his comfort zone, just in the sense that, I knocked this dude out in 30 seconds. Like, I don't need to wake up I don't need to wake up at 6 a.m. and run those extra miles. Whereas Shogun, even though, he's also, at a spot where 1 or 2 fights away from retirement, at least he knows, hey, this guy knocked me out before. There's got to be that danger factor in his head, like going to bed every night, remembering what happened the first time. I think he wants to get one back on him. So I think the mental edge actually is on Shogun here. I think he's going to be the hungrier guy, which is crazy to say about a guy who's 1 or 2 fights away from retirement. But I just see it that way. Like, what, like from OSP's standpoint, like, are you motivated to knock him out in under 30 seconds, or do you view it like, bro, I got this guy's number. You see what I did to him last time? Throw the skateboard under him. You saw that gif. He's gonna slip, and I'm gonna walk out with my dub. So I don't know, man. I don't know. So to me, it's a dog or pass. But when I say that, half a unit shot, 1 unit shot. Let's not exaggerate. Let's not go big or nothing. But it's just, do I feel comfortable laying minus 250 on Ovince St. Preux in 2022? No, I do not. So I'm picking Shogun to win this fight.
Yeah, I don't hate it, man. And if you are going to bet the fight, like I said, I mean, with you, if you're betting the money line, no chance I'm laying chalk on Ovince Preux. If you are going to play him though, I would say target probably the knockout prop, because plus 250 is not a bad look for a guy that seemingly his durability is not really there at this stage in his career.
You know, I'm more of a money line guy. I mean, because it's like, just think, like I talk about all these examples all the time. The fans are sick of me talking about this. Like when I bet on Francis Ngannou plus 130, and everyone gave me shit for not betting him by KO instead.
And then he wins by decision.
Yeah, I'm like, dude, just like it's tough enough to pick a winner, let alone the method. I mean, like I didn't bet on Jordan Levitt, but he was like a dog, and people were betting him by sub and not taking just the outright money line when he was the dog. I bet they felt pretty fucking stupid doing that. So to me, money line's enough, especially when he's a plus 200 dog. So I'm good on the prop.
Yeah, and full disclosure, I was one of those stupid people that lost money on the Monkey King's submission prop in that fight.
Don't you just wish you would have just taken him straight, because he was the dog. He was plus 130. What?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, it was stupid. That's all there is to it.
But those are the things you learn from. Like, you gotta experience that to know going forward. Let's not fucking do that anymore. I mean, if the price is reasonable, right? If it was like minus 180 or some shit, okay, then I understand. But if the guy's if the guy that you're picking outright is the dog, let's not try to get cute. Let's not try to get fancy. But to each their own. That's just me though.
Yeah. And honestly, like I didn't expect him to win that fight. Like the only reason I bet the submission prop was because it was like plus 380 or something, which I thought was just kind of bizarre, being that he's such a submission first style fighter. But he's not fighting on this card, so we don't have to go down that rabbit hole. But I just thought like he was plus 120 or something on the money line. His submission prop was plus 360 or plus 380. It was just a wide discrepancy for the way he typically fights. But
I will say this: if you took 1 unit on money line, half unit on sub, then you still come out on top.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
But that's a different talk for a different time. So let's move on to the fight kicking off the main card between the legend Donald Cowboy Cerrone. He's 36-16, taking on another legend in Joe Lauzon, who was 28-15. Surprised that these guys have never fought before, like considering how long their tenures inside the UFC. And even the WC for Cerrone. So currently they got it Cerrone minus 185. The comeback on Lauzon is plus 160. John Kelly, I know that on paper this seems pretty easy to call in terms of the dynamic of the matchup. I mean, Joe Lauzon's known for going out there, balls to the wall in that first round, and he can get a lot of guys out of there early or hurt them badly. I mean, even in some of these fights that he's losing, like the Stevie Ray fight, he got a 10-8 in that first round. And this version of Donald Cerrone, he's always been a slow starter throughout his career. It's just that back in his heyday, he was able to weather those storms. And I know for a fact, if they ran this a few years back, like it'd be a max bet on Donald Cerrone as far as I'm concerned, because I know he'd weather that Lauzon storm. And I know that once Cowboy Cerrone starts getting into his flow, once Donald Cerrone starts getting off on his combinations, he's got some of the most beautiful work in UFC history. I mean, the way you remember that combo he hit on Rick Story? You remember you remember that combo he hit on Patrick Cote? And I mean, he's had the most fights in UFC history, unless Jim Miller surpassed him. Just what I'm trying to say is that there's so many I could mention that my boy Leo decided to hop in the chat here. Hey, and it's funny, the dog comes in while we're about to talk about the underdog. Usually that's a sign that but anyways, what I'm trying to say here is that I'm not sure Cerrone can still weather these early storms, and I know that Lauzon is still going to go balls to the wall in that first round. I think that Lauzon first round finish is live. But again, back to the Shogun talk. The reason that you can't sit here and put 4 units on Lauzon, you can't sit here and go big, is because we know Lauzon historically falls apart after that first round, and it's been happening year after year after year, even in his prime. Now, there have been some exceptions. I mean, I know you remember that Jamie Varner fight where he came back and actually got a third-round finish, but for the most part, it's a situation where Lauzon's got to get you out of there early. But Cerrone's on a 6-fight skid, man. Cerrone is not looking like Cerrone anymore. Cerrone's getting finished by guys. My boy said it's hard to hear Daniel over that shirt. That's funny. But the mic sounds good though, right?
Oh, it's super clear.
Cool. Cerrone's been getting finished by guys that wouldn't have even been able to hold his jock strap a couple of years ago, and that's not any kind of disrespect, because back in the day, if you're not a top 5 guy, you're not beating Donald Cerrone. That's literally how it used to be. But nowadays, we got guys like Alex Morano coming out here and finishing him in the first round. And all due respect, Morano, very tough guy that I enjoy watching. But is Morano a top 5 guy? Is Morano a top 10 guy? Is Morano a top 15 guy? Is Morano a top 20 guy? No, he's just an exciting fighter in the UFC who I enjoy watching. But the fact that guys like that are finishing him in the first round, super alarming, because that would have never, ever been the case back in the day. So I think Joe Lauzon's got a chance to come out here and run through Donald in the first round. It's just the reason that you got to, use proper money management, use discipline, exercise caution, is because if this fight goes past the first round, if Cerrone starts tapping into his flow, into his groove, I mean, let's just be honest, he's going to pick apart Lauzon in that second and third round and possibly get him out of there.
Yeah, that's basically how I see it playing out. Anytime you see Donald Cerrone at this stage in his career as a pretty big favorite, it gives you a little room, or it gives you a little cause for concern, right? Like, he's like a minus 175 favorite. You mentioned not quite a 6-fight skid, though. He did have a draw there against Nico Price, right? So give him a little bit of credit. But I like Cerrone in this matchup. I do agree with you that Lauzon is live in the first round. But outside of that, I think, and honestly, I don't think he's really going to have that much success. Like obviously against Jonathan Pierce, right? He was able to get the takedown, dominate him on the mat. It wasn't even close. I don't think he's going to be able to do that against Donald Cerrone. I'm not even convinced he can get takedowns against Donald Cerrone. So I think he pretty much has to hurt him on the feet, which is obviously live because Cerrone's chin is definitely declining. He's been knocked out a ton over that 6-fight skid or whatever. So, but outside of that early finish from Lauzon, which I think is just a very small outcome, I think Donald Cerrone's the better minute winner. I think he's the better fighter. So I like Cerrone in this matchup. I'm not going to bet him because I could see this one just being super sloppy. You have a ton of concerns on both sides. We mentioned the durability concerns of Donald Cerrone. How about Joe Lauzon's durability concerns? People were saying he should hang it up 3-4 years ago. And then he comes back, has the fight in Boston and wins. I thought that was his retirement fight. Now he's coming off a 2.5-year layoff. So who knows what version of him we're going to get? I'm not expecting to see this vintage masterclass performance from Joe Lauzon. So I think the counter striking is going to be a big factor in this matchup. So I lean the Cerrone side. Might be a hot take, but I could see this one kind of going the full 15 minutes where maybe we almost see a finish by Lauzon in the first round and then almost see a finish by Cerrone in the second or third round. And then Cerrone just gets his hand raised in his decision. But I like the Cerrone side. I think he covers here.
No, I mean, it's not going to be Lauzon taking him down. It has to be Lauzon blitzing him on the feet and giving him no respect whatsoever. And it's not just this 6-fight skid. And I'm going to mention fighters who are on a different league than Lauzon, but basically this has been an ongoing thing. You remember the second RDA fight, the one that was for the title, just blitzes him right away, which is what Lauzon does to guys. I mean, you watch that Lauzon versus Diego Sanchez fight, and Diego Sanchez, this and that. But Diego Sanchez, at least even though he loses every single fight, at least for the most part, he goes a 3-round distance and takes his ass whooping like a man. Even Michel Pereira couldn't get him out of there, which is crazy. Kevin Lee couldn't get him out of there recently. At least Diego, he's not winning fights. Let's establish that. But at least he can take his ass whoopings for the most part. Lauzon got him out of there. That's what I'm worried about here with Cerrone. I'm worried about Lauzon blitzing him and just hurting him, compromising him, putting him away in that first. If this goes past the first, I've been worried about Lauzon a long time. I cashed on Gritzmacher against Lauzon, right? But back to that fight, Lauzon was having that early success. Gritzmacher's one of those guys that, for the most part, there's been some exceptions, but for the most part, you hit him with a baseball bat, you start teeing off on him, you start gassing out from whooping his ass, and then all of a sudden he comes back. He's still there. You watch that Rafa Garcia fight. Rafa Garcia thought the fight was in the bag, hurt him early, unloaded the tank, and the dude was still there. That's the thing. I'm not convinced that Cerrone's still gonna be there. So that's what I'm worried about on the Cerrone side, and that's the only path I see for Lauzon is that first round finish. So as a result, I do want him on my DraftKings. Do I want to take a 1-unit shot on him? I don't know, because I'm betting on a washed up fighter. Like, I acknowledge that. You know what I'm saying? It's like, but it's the spot. And this version of Cerrone, I don't know, man. So Cerrone in the second or third, or Lauzon in the first, or if it's a decision, 29-28 Cerrone probably, or a draw, 10-8 first. But then again, it might not be a draw because the rounds that Cerrone wins might be dominant too.
Might be 10-8 too, yeah.
Yeah. So this is, it's going to be a fucking great fight, man. I'm glad they're doing it. Now, before we talk about the featured prelim between Randy Brown and Khaos Williams, go ahead and plug all your stuff right now, because my dog's asking me to leave the studio. So let me let him out the room real quick and tell everybody where to find you. Tell everybody what you got coming up. And say what's up to the fans real quick. Give me 1 second, y'all.
Yeah, no worries. So for those that don't know, I did a full betting and DraftKings breakdown on my YouTube channel at John Kelly DFS. I also will be having an underdog pick'em video that comes out later tonight on my YouTube channel. I have a website, fightnumbers.com, where I have a bunch of free DFS and betting information for UFC gamblers, basically. A lot of cool stuff down the pipeline as well. So definitely go check all that out. Everything I do is completely free. So let me know what you think.
I like it, just so y'all know. But before we talk about this fight between Randy Brown and Khaos Williams, which is actually my first bet of the night as of this recording, I got to give a shout out to our sponsor, DraftKings Sportsbook. So guys, the calf slicer, the Peruvian necktie, the banana split. There are tons of ways to come out on top inside the octagon. And for UFC 274, there's one more with DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the UFC. New customers can bet $5 on any fighter to win and get $150 in free bets if they do. So choose your fighter, then sit back and watch the action unfold. Anything can happen on fight night, but with DraftKings with DraftKings Sportsbook, you got a sure thing for UFC 274. Bet $5 and get $150 in free bets if your fighter wins. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code Levy. That's my last name. Spelled like Levi Jeans, L-E-V-I, not L-E-V-Y like Natan Levy, L-E-V-I like Levi Jeans. Throw down $5 on any UFC 274 fighter to win and get $150 in free bets if they do. That's code Levy this Saturday at DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the UFC. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for detail. And shout out to DraftKings Sportsbook. Now, my friend, let's get down to this featured prelim between Randy Rude Boy Brown, who's 14-4, taking on Khaos Williams, who is 13-2. And currently, they got it. Khaos Williams minus 125. The comeback on Randy Brown is plus 105. So I think this is an amazing fight. I think that if you want me to keep it 100 with you, which I tend to always do, John Kelly, I think that both these guys are top 15 guys right now, despite them not being ranked. Because one thing I've been talking about often is that a lot of these up-and-comers, I say quote-unquote up-and-comers, are about to usher out the old guard. You go to a weight class like lightweight right now. Let me read some funny things to you. Tony Ferguson is number 7 in the world. Conor McGregor, all due respect, is number 9 in the world. Dan Hooker is number 13 in the world. You mean to tell me that these guys like Arman Sarukian, Rafael Fiziev, Brad Riddell are not just about to come out here and usher out the Tony Fergusons and the Dan Hookers? So you're about to see a new era emerge. And the reason I brought that up is because you go up to welterweight where this bout is taking place. Currently at number 7, they got Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, this version of him, the 40-year-old Thompson. They got at number 7. They got Jorge Masvidal at number 8. They got Neil Magny at 10. They got Chiesa at 11. Like, you mean to tell me that these guys like Shavkat Rakhmonov, Sean Brady, Hamzat Chimaev, you mean to tell me that these guys aren't about to come out here and usher these guys out the rankings? And the reason I bring this up is because I think Randy Brown and Khaos Williams are top 15 guys right now. They just haven't had that signature win per se that gets them there, but I think they're on the level right now. Jose Lopez says, you're losing that Randy Brown bet, Daniel. Shit, I hope not, but if you think that, you should bet Khaos, man. But let me at least give my reasoning first. So, I mean, there's no denying what Khaos brings to the table. He's got that one hitter quitter, but I wouldn't disrespect. Oh shit, what does that mean? That the
dude, it's a bad omen. Every time it's a bad omen. So I don't know if that means it's bad on your bet or because I was going to pick Khaos Williams. So it could just mean that I'm wrong.
Yeah, well, we'll see. But so basically, you can't deny the one hitter quitter power of Khaos Williams. There are no questions asked about that. But for me to sit here and act like the only path to victory for Khaos is he's got to land a lucky punch, that would be categorically false and factually incorrect, because I think that Khaos Williams is a very, very skilled guy. I actually think he can win decisions. I think he can mix in takedowns, and I think that he will be a top 15 guy one day. No questions asked. He will be a top 15 guy, and I like his mindset. I like how serious this guy takes the game. So Khaos Williams, 100% on my radar, but the thing is, he's only 26, 27, only had 5 UFC fights. He's still got to pay your dues a little bit, young man, and I think that that's what this fight is right here, man. I think that the key for Randy Brown to win this fight is volume and movement. And you might look at UFC stats and it says that, Khaos lands more than Randy Brown. But if you actually look deep into it, the reason the numbers say that is because Khaos Williams had 2 knockouts in 30 seconds, which completely skewed the stats. But the reality of it is, if you want to talk about who has landed more strikes in a 15-minute fight, it's Randy Brown. So what I think here is that Randy Brown, he's got to play that long man game. That's the bottom line here. He's got to keep Khaos Williams on the outside. He's got to pop that jab, mix in the kicks from time to time, maybe even get him thinking about takedowns. He doesn't not necessarily have to get a takedown, but at least feint the takedowns and come out here and use that experience, man. I mean, by this point, Randy Brown has been paying his dues for so long. He's fought tough competition. He's been in there with 2 guys that are currently ranked in the top 5. And I think it's finally his time to shine. These last 2 performances, I've been seeing the Randy Brown I've been wanting to see for a very long time. You know, the fight with Oliveira, Cowboy, I understand Cowboy might have seen better days, but I mean, Cowboy still has moments in a lot of these fights. Usually it's 1-1 going into the 3rd round, and he'll drop the 3rd round because he's gassed. Or the Kevin Holland fight, he won the 1st round and then got stopped in the 2nd. But Randy Brown just went out there and just starched him and got a one-handed rear naked choke. The Jared Gooden fight. I might be biased because Jared's my boy, but can we all agree that Jared has an absolutely insane chin? Did you see that front kick to the face that Jared ate and didn't even flinch? And the reason I bring that up is because Jared's a guy that's had 30 professional fights. He's only been stopped 1 time. The guy that stopped him was a 6'5", 205er, and even he couldn't knock out Jared. It was a standing TKO. So Jared's got one of the best chins I've seen in all my years watching the sport, and I'm just not convinced that some of these other guys can eat the shots that Randy Brown was landing in that fight. And I'm not sitting here questioning the durability of Khaos Williams, not at all. Very durable guy. But in that Baeza fight, I saw some moments where both guys got rocked. It's just Khaos Williams has a hell of a poker face, but Baeza's still green. Baeza's still figuring things out. Baeza's not quite there yet, whereas Randy Brown, he's been in the UFC since his early 20s. Now he's a 32-year-old grown-ass man. I think he's flat out in his prime. I think he's ready to come out here and have these big performances, and I think he's going to edge out Khaos Williams in this fight. Look, is there a chance that Khaos Williams knocks him out? Look, Khaos Williams hits so damn hard, I think he can knock anybody out. But I also wouldn't write off the possibility of Randy Brown getting a stoppage of his own. I mean, those shots he was landing in that last fight, I mean, when he starts putting his hands together, man, especially with that length, and now that he's got the experience, the seasoning, the confidence in himself to know that he belongs, I think we're going to start seeing the best version of Randy Brown. So I took the plus 115 odds on Brown. It's more of a bet on Brown than it is a fade on Khaos, because I respect Khaos. Like I said, I think both these guys are top 15 guys right now, and I think that they both will be in the top 15. I just kind of think that Khaos, dude, you've only had 5 UFC fights. Randy's had close to 3 times the amount of fights as you. It's his time. He's paid his dues right now. I think he's going to have his moment, but in about a year or two, you will be hearing from Khaos in the rankings. Make no mistake. But I took Randy Brown plus 115. Give me that movement. Give me that volume. Let's go out there and win this fight.
Yeah, so I love the breakdown, love the confidence on Randy Brown. This is one, and good news for you because I am the opposite of a Chaos Williams whisperer. That's what I am, and I'm picking him in this matchup. So, I mean, it should mean that Randy Brown's going to win because I have basically, I guess, underrated Chaos throughout his career and really just have not been able to fade him successfully. Even when I bet Michel Pereira, I think I bet him by knockout or something like that, like to where I didn't even end up cashing that one as well.
Back to that discussion we had.
Yeah, that was a mistake. But yeah, I mean, I think this is a competitive fight. I do actually think that Randy Brown's the more talented of the two as far as, his well-rounded game. I think he's a little bit more clean on the feet. I think he's more defensively sound. The problem is I don't trust the durability quite as much as you do. Like, I don't think he reacts great to getting hit. I do think he's susceptible to getting knocked out. And like you said, Chaos Williams does have a ton of power. So it's like a fight that I think is going to be competitive that I don't really have a ton of conviction on. I guess I favor the guy with a little bit more power, who's probably a little bit more durable as well. So that's why I lean Chaos. But again, it's no bet for me. And I don't feel strongly either way. But like I said, I've never gotten Chaos right, or I've never got him right betting against him. And I've never got him right when I picked him. So I guess it's good news for a Randy Brown bet.
Let's see what happens, man. I mean, again, it's a 1.5 unit shot at plus 115 odds. It's not like I'm sitting here saying it's max bet season. Like, I think you guys, I hope you guys saw the kind of respect I have for Chaos. I mean, I called him a top 15 guy right now. I think he's that good. I just think that I do believe in paying your dues. I do believe in seasoning and experience, and then talk about the movement and the length and the volume, which is what I hope to see Randy Brown execute on a Saturday night. So let's see what happens. Everybody watching this, do us a huge favor. Smash that like button. Hit that subscribe button. I don't got no big websites backing me or nothing. This is all me and all my awesome guests, just trying to give you guys some entertaining content and some informative stuff as well. And I'm truly grateful for every single one of you that's in here with me right now. So the ways you guys help the channel grow, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, share, comment on this video, retweet. All those little things you guys do help the show grow incrementally. So I truly appreciate it, and let's keep pushing. Now, next up, also in the welterweight division, we got a matchup between the ageless wonder, Francisco Masuranduba Trinaldo. He's 27-8. He will be 44 years old later this year, taking on Danny Hot Chocolate Roberts, who is 18-5. And currently, they got it basically a pick'em with a slight lean on Trinaldo, minus 115 Trinaldo, minus 105 Danny Roberts. And man, how you kind of see this one going down? Because Trinaldo, I mean, I keep waiting for the day that he finally. Hey, Oscar, now's not the time, big guy. You heard my dog barking in the background. Hey,
is that a sign for the underdog?
Does that mean we got to bet on Danny Roberts here, my man? But basically, I think that this is a spot where actually I want to hear your take first. So, but before you do, I've been waiting, not because I want to see Trinaldo fail. I love Trinaldo. He's such a badass. Trinaldo knows what it means to have a 7-fight win streak in the UFC. Trinaldo knows what it means to hit the top 15. Trinaldo is a bad motherfucker. The guy I got so much respect for. Masuranduba stands for Brazilian Redwood, and you can tell by the way the guy's built. But that being said, are we finally reaching that point where the wheels will start to fall off? He turns 44 later this year, John Kelly.
Yeah, this is another one. I feel like I don't have a strong take on it because Trinaldo kind of always finds himself in those close competitive fights, especially if they go the full 15 minutes. And I do think this one probably goes the full 15 minutes. He's not super high volume. He does have some power, but he can get hit as well. And, he mixes in the grappling, but not a ton. He averages just under like one takedown per 15 minutes or right around one. And then on the flip side, like Danny Roberts is going to be the bigger fighter here. He's going to have a size advantage. I think he has like a 4 or 5 inch reach advantage as well. He's the more natural 170er in this matchup, but it's like Trinaldo is a very strong fighter. Like, even though he's going to be smaller, I don't really think the size of Roberts is going to play at least too big of a role because I don't think this fight's going to be fought a ton out in space. Like I expect Trinaldo to close distance, to cage push, probably land a takedown or two. So this is one where it's like, I don't have a strong take either way, but I do actually favor the old man, I guess you can say, in Trinaldo here, just because I think it's going to be a close fight. And I trust him a little bit more in terms of the durability. Roberts has been finished in all 5 of his professional losses. He's a guy, historically speaking, is completely untrustworthy. So in a fight like where fights that I think are always going to be like super close or competitive, we're kind of grasping at straws to favor one side or the other. I tend to use those type of things as tiebreakers. Like, okay, well, if I know Trinaldo at least has the heart and the durability factor, like if all other things equal, like I'm going to side with him, even though he's over the hill, So I lean Trinaldo. I think it's probably Trinaldo decision, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Roberts pull it off either. It's going to be a pass for me in terms of the betting market.
Look, there's no question there has been durability concerns on the Roberts side. I mean, that's not opinion, that's a fact. Like, let's just get that out the way. But the output on the Trinaldo side, especially these days, has been so low. But I mean, obviously you got to always look out for that massive overhand left, the opportunistic takedowns at the end of rounds. I mean, the guy is such a vet. He's so seasoned. He's not going to do anything uncharacteristic. The things that I'm worried about is these close fights, and he starts to fade down the stretch. He is getting up there in age, like we mentioned. And one thing about Danny Hot Chocolate, while he's conscious, dude's a dog. Dude hustles. Dude tries to win the fights. And that Amib fight, like, I don't care who you scored that Amib fight for. What we can all agree on is that Danny Roberts gave it 100% effort. Like, and that's something I like. And if you give me dog odds on him, just give me like plus 105. Give me plus 110. I'll take a 1-unit shot to take a guy who I think is going to give maximum effort, a guy who I think is kind of in his prime, versus someone who I got so much admiration for, but is going to be 44 later this year. Is he an ageless wonder like Yoel, where it doesn't matter? Is he an ageless wonder like Randy Couture, where it just doesn't matter? And I mean, it hasn't mattered like the last few fights, right? It's just at some point it will. And usually you got to predict these things one fight in advance. Like, so, and like you think back to like Frankie Edgar. You used to be able to hit Frankie Edgar with a baseball bat. You used to be able to run over Frankie Edgar with a car, and he'd come back and finish. He'd come back and easily win the fight. You remember the Gray Manor trilogy?
I want to say yes, but I might be confusing it with one of the other fights.
Oh shit. Okay. Well, let's go back and rewatch the Gray Manor Frankie Edgar trilogy. But basically, my point is, don't even worry about the first fight. But the second and third fight, the first round was 10-8 for Gray Maynard both times. He like dropped Frankie Edgar like 4 or 5 times, and like and Frankie Edgar dug deep and came back and won those fights. Like, but the reason I brought that up was because, and then you watch Frankie Edgar versus Benson Henderson, when Benson Henderson knocked him down with that big up kick, and Frankie Edgar still has the wherewithal to keep pushing in those fights. So you keep thinking like, this guy's invincible. This guy can't be knocked out. Eventually he started getting knocked out on multiple occasions. So that's why I'm bringing this up. Like at some point, the durability is not going to be there like it once was. So I'm not saying this is going to be the time, but I am saying Danny Roberts can crack. Danny Roberts is a real welterweight. Danny Roberts is not a lightweight who doesn't want to cut weight anymore. This is a 6'1" guy with a 75-inch reach, and he's a real full-size welterweight. He's going to try his best while he's conscious. So as long as he doesn't get knocked out, I think this has the chance to be a very close kind of fight. And if that's the case, give me the dog odds on Robert. I haven't made a play on it yet, but if the line continues to improve, I'll take my chances on maybe a 1-unit shot on Roberts, and let's see what happens.
Yeah, I don't hate it, man. I think you might get the opportunity. I think I wouldn't be surprised if the market keeps moving towards Trinaldo here.
So we got a few more fights to talk about, and we can, be a little bit less long-winded on these. Yep. Macy Chiasson 7-2, taking on Norma Dumont, who's 7-1. Dumont minus 225, Chiasson plus 185. I've always questioned Chiasson. I mean, I think that the reason she's had success is actually she's like 5'11". I think I hate making excuses like saying, oh, weight bullies, because my whole opinion has been if you can make the weight, then you belong in the weight. So this whole weight bully talk has never been something that I've liked to talk about, but like I'm just bringing it up that like I think she's gotten away with some of these wins just because of her size, but I question the mental, I question the heart. Like you remember the Lena Landsberg fight, Saif Saud was screaming at her between rounds, and she still didn't make those adjustments. Last fight against Rocky, look, Rocky's a seasoned vet, but it still came out again. And with Norma Dumont, what I like about her is, she got the fundamentals down, fights behind her jab, throws leg kicks, mixes in takedowns from time to time. I just think she's got a more well put together game, and I'm going to pick Dumont to come out here and win this decision.
Yeah, I really don't have a ton to add here. On one hand, you could probably make an argument that the line's wide. Macy Chiasson is going to be the bigger fighter here, 4 or 5 inches of reach. But it's just like the way that she fights. Like it's not like it's going to play that big of a factor. Like both of these women are going to try to do the same thing, cage push a bunch, like pretty low volume on both sides. I just don't put a ton of faith on either side. Like I don't put faith in Norma Dumont to cover a minus 220 or whatever. And I put zero faith in Macy Chiasson to come in with the right game plan or even implement any sort of game plan, to your point. So it's a pass for me, man. I don't want any action on this fight. I'd say Dumont wins, but minus 220, I'm not putting my money on it to find out.
Now, who's one fighter that I will never miss their fights? Mr. Brandon Royval. He's 13-6, taking on Matt Schnell, who is 15-6. And currently they got it. Brandon Royval. Now here's my issue. Minus 245 to come back. Matt Schnell's plus 205. Royval is a guy I want to bet at dog money. Whether it was the time I bet him against Tim Elliott, the Kai Kara France fight. I don't remember if I bet him there, but he was a dog there. Like those are the spots I like because, he's kind of like a green Cheeto Vera. Like he's gonna drop rounds from time to time, but like he will do some flashy, unorthodox things that you don't see from other guys. He will turn up on guys. I actually thought his Bontarine fight, I was surprised it was a split. I thought he clearly won the fight. And with Schnell, technically speaking, he's on point. It's just with Schnell, sometimes there's been questions about the durability. Like I was in attendance when Hector Sandoval landed 1-inch hammer fist and knocked him out cold in Nashville. It was kind of crazy. But Schnell, like if he's not getting knocked out, he's very skilled, man. The calf kicks, the jabs, the little subtle head movement he's got going on. He's got a nice opportunistic guillotine too. So I think Schnell could give him a good fight, but I got to pull for Raw Dog here. So let's go Raw Dog, but not crazy about the price.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you, man. And I know you busted me a little bit for chasing some props when it burned me. But, the other side of that argument is I cashed Brandon Royval submission tickets on both of those fights. Nice. So you get a little bit of better money or better bang for your buck than the money line in those fights. But yeah, I love Brandon Royval just like you. I think the pace is going to be a big factor here. He's going to move forward. I totally agree. Matt Schnell, technically speaking, he's got a much better jab, very technically sound. The problem is Royval's not going to just stand and make this a normal technical kickboxing match. Like his pace is, he's going to pressure Schnell up against the cage. He's going to use his kicks, which I think are going to play a factor here. And I actually think he's going to land takedowns in this matchup. And on the flip side, Matt Schnell is a guy who, historically speaking, yes, he has a bunch of submissions, but he's not really a takedown guy. He's only landed 2 takedowns across 9 UFC fights. Like he's not going to come in here and be able to wrestle Brandon Royval. And I favor Royval when it does get to the mat. He's super opportunistic with a bunch of different tools and submissions on the mat. So I like Royval here with you. I don't love the price, but I do think he wins. And I talked about props earlier, but like you can't even target a prop for Royval because they were at like his submission prop is like plus 160 or something. Like that's just way too short for me. Like I'm not playing.
What's his KO prop?
His KO prop, I think was a little bit enticing. I want to say it was like plus, it was somewhere in the 3s, but I have best fight odds pulled up. So let me find out. I want to say it was like plus 3 something.
Yeah, because
plus 400. And it looks like FanDuel has the best number at plus 460. I might have to take a little poke at that.
See, that's different because Royval is a minus 250 favorite. If Royval was the dog, then you just take the dog odds. But here, minus 250, here's where, I would entertain a prop. But I'm passing altogether. My pick is Royval. Now, next up in the heavyweight division, we got Blagoy Ivanov representing Bulgaria, taking on Marcos Rogerio de Lima Pesao, who is 19-7, representing Brazil. And currently they got it. Blagoy Ivanov, a -150. The comeback on Marcos Rogerio de Lima Pesaos, +130. A lot of people thought the line was short. What is your take, my friend?
I like the Blagoy Ivanov side. Like, he's coming off a long layoff here. Who knows what he's going to look like? But historically speaking, this guy is one of the toughest dudes to get out of there. Like, he's never been finished. I doubt De Lima is going to be the guy to put him out. Like, unless the durability just randomly fell off a cliff in the last 2 years since we haven't seen him. But De Lima, we know what he's going to bring to the table. He's super powerful early in the fight, but outside of the first round, like, he really doesn't have much to offer here because I don't expect him to have any success trying to wrestle Ivanov. I actually think Ivanov could have a little bit of success landing takedowns here. So the pick is for me is going to be Ivanov by decision, but I don't have a bet on either fighter in this matchup.
Yeah, usually I look to fade Rogerio de Lima because it used to be a case where you just one takedown and the fight is over shortly after. Like, I remember when I cashed in on Gadzi Himurad Antigulov, and it was actually de Lima that took him down. Guillotine that wasn't even locked in, he tapped out. The Nikita Krylov fight, choke wasn't even locked in, tapped out. Now, props to him because in that last fight against Romanov, he went to sleep. So maybe that's a step in the right direction in terms of him believing in himself. Or maybe that fucking forearm choke was so goddamn tight that he didn't even get a chance to tap out. But bottom line, like, I just don't know what to expect from Ivanov. Like, all things considered, Ivanov's the much better fighter here. He's been in there. I mean, they've both been in there with good competition. But Ivanov's not a stunt puller. If Ivanov's going to lose a fight, it's because he didn't throw enough. Whereas I've seen Rogerio de Lima go out there, win a 10-8 round against Stefan Struve, and then quit in the second round. Like, so that's that shit I don't like, to quote. Can someone let me know what rapper said that? But yeah, look here. I mean, you got to favor Blagoy. It's just I'm gonna be really pissed off. Like, well, I'm not because I'm not betting this fight. But if I were to bet Blagoy, I'd be really pissed off when this is a low volume fight. You're screaming, Blagoy, please throw. Blagoy, please take him down. And they're just kind of staring at each other. And it's a split decision and you lose. But when you talk about low volume, and, you know, let's bring up some stats here. Because, you know, I'm worried about Blagoy being low volume. Listen to this shit, John Kelly. In Marcos Rogerio de Lima's 3-round fight against Maurice Green, he landed a grand total of 14 significant strikes.
Yeah. Yeah, he just laid on him for like 15 minutes.
Can we have a moment of silence? 14 significant strikes in a 15-minute fight. In his unanimous decision win against Adam Visharek, he landed a grand total of 28 significant strikes. So if I'm worried about the low volume of Blagoy, what about this low volume of Marcos Rogerio de Lima Pesaos? But at the same time, I saw Blagoy drop Tai Tuivasa, and I've seen De Lima go out there, blitz some guys, knock out Ben Rothwell, first guy to do it since Cain Velasquez in 2009. #free Cain Velasquez. Like, either guy could get knocked out. They're still heavyweights, but most likely the way I'm viewing it is that low volume type fight. But it could play out much differently than that. I don't really know. That's all I got for you.
Yeah, that's all I got too. I say Blagoy by decision, but no bet for me either way.
Now, next up in the welterweight division, we got a matchup between Andre Fialho representing Portugal, right?
Something like that.
Let me just make sure I'm not fucking that up.
Is it Brazil?
Yeah, Portugal. Okay, cool. Just had to make sure. Taking on Cameron VanCamp, who is 15-5. So they got pretty virtually identical records, to quote Goldberg. And currently they got it. Do you get a bunch of like random fucking calls from like no caller ID, scam this, scam likely? Like,
it's not as bad as it used to be, but yeah, it got to the point where I don't have a voicemail set up on my cell phone just so people don't call me. I hate it when people call me.
Yeah. I'm going to make sure to call him right after this show. No, but currently they got it. Andre Fialho -400. The comeback on Cameron VanCamp, excuse me, not Van Zandt. It's +340. Just depends where you look. Look, I'm familiar with VanCamp from the regional scene because he fought here in the South at a league called B2. Let's just say, no disrespect, but I'm not. Hold on, someone said don't disrespect Portugal. I wasn't. I was trying to confirm that it was Portugal because I do respect Portugal. But anyways, this dude VanCamp, I don't think he belongs at the UFC level, my man. You know, he was turning down fights with some of my guys. I mean, could you imagine what Jared Gooden would do to him? Could you imagine what Robert Hale would do to him? I don't blame him. But he got this opportunity, and the reason why is this. If you recall Andre Fialho's last fight against Miguel Baeza, he got on the mic and he said, Dana White, I want to have a private meeting with you. Why did he want to have a private meeting with him? Because Andre Fialho is very firm on his stance that when this guy is active, when this guy's consistently in the gym, that's when you're going to get the best version of him. You know, when he's taking a bunch of layoffs in between fights, he feels like that's when he has his worst performances, but he feels like when he's in shape, he can knock out any man on the planet at welterweight. And he told Dana, I want to fight 6 times this year. So Dana was like, all right, well, here you go. Here's a fight in 2 weeks. And here's a handpicked opponent who we owe a fight to anyway. So go ahead and knock this guy out real quick. So I think Fialho is going to come out here, pick his shots, put this guy away, barring some kind of epic stunt. So give me Fialho to come out here and cover that price tag.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm right there with you. Like, I know it's a big price tag here, but on the VanCamp side, like, he's basically like one of those typical low-level regional type submission first like grapplers. And in terms of the striking, like, because I do have concerns with Fialho defensively grappling, I just don't think that VanCamp is going to be able to successfully grapple against him, because in terms of the striking, his defense is just not there. Like, he's eating clean shots against guys much less skilled than Fialho here. And Fialho, 12 of his 15 wins have come by knockout. We know he has punching power. He just knocked out Miguel Baeza 3 weeks ago. So I think he lands clean on VanCamp, and I think he gets him out of there, Fialho, by knockout.
Now, next up in the flyweight division, we got a matchup between Tracy Cortez. She's 9-1, taking on Melissa Gatto, who is 8-0. Currently, they got it. Tracy Cortez -150. The comeback on Melissa Gatto is +130. I love this fight for so many reasons. I mean, you obviously got the wrestling background of Tracy Cortez. You know what she brings to the table. You know she's got very good top control. You know, she's opportunistic with those takedown attempts. She's also tough as hell, man, because her stand-up ain't the best, and she eats a lot of clean shots, but she doesn't get deterred. She doesn't back up. She doesn't, you know, fall into a fetal position. She keeps trying to fight. So I like her heart, and she's going to be booed by this crowd here in Arizona. But let me say something about Melissa Gatto. She's one of these fighters that all my DFS brothers hate this style of fighting, but I love. Like the Cheeto Vera type style, where like you question certain things about the minute winning, but you don't question the opportunistic finishing ability. And one thing about Gatto, is she going to give up takedowns here? Yes. Yes, she will. However, I know she's going to survive this first round. Once that second round starts, she's got much cleaner hands than Tracy Cortez, much better kicks. And then also when Cortez is a little tired, that's when I think there's a chance for some submission attempts. I mean, I saw her go out there and sweep a Lloyd Irvin black belt her very last fight. It was a beautiful sweep she hit on Sijara Eubanks. And I like Gatto. She's very opportunistic. It's just the thing you got to accept is that if you're betting her, you're most likely dropping this first round. Like, we're going to lose this first round. It's just a question of, can she pull that Cheeto Vera type, you know, fight where she starts coming back, she starts imposing her will, because she's a very tough girl. She's going to be there for all 15 minutes. It's just, how much top control is she going to give up? You know, that's the big thing here. Too much top control given up, the judges are going to give it to Cortez. But one sweep could change this fight. One big kick, one big punch, and those are the intangibles that Melissa Gatto brings to the table. So I don't know if she's going to win or lose this fight, but I do like her going forward, man. I mean, she went out there and she finished Carl Hosa. She went out there and she finished Sijara Eubanks. Like, I get Sijara Eubanks might alternate wins and losses, but who else is out here finishing her, you know, and sweeping a black belt like that? So I do like the potential in Gatto. It's just, this fight is one of those that I truly believe is going to come down to the wire. And oftentimes in fights like that, I like to take the dog. My only issue is I feel like I missed out on the line. I feel like I missed out on the +170. I feel like I missed out on the +160, the +180. +130, I mean, I guess if you're picking someone outright, there's still value. But when I miss a line by like 50 cents, That's my issue here. So, I mean, how much top control do you see Tracy Cortez getting, John Kelly? And do you think that Melissa Gatto is going to have those big moments to sway the judges in her favor or potentially get a finish?
I do, yeah. And to answer your question, I think both of them are probably going to happen here. I expect Cortez to have success with the wrestling early in this fight. In terms of the striking, I do favor Melissa Gatto here. You know, we've seen Cortez against lesser level strikers have some success with her boxing, but we've seen her eat a lot of clean shots. She doesn't have much defense in terms of her striking, and against somebody that's going to be a lot more physical than her and a lot more dangerous in the striking in Melissa Gatto, I think Gatto could piece her up on the feet, and then we're going to see Cortez start to desperately wrestle. And yes, Gatto has been taken down on the regional scene and in that Sijara Eubanks fight. She is a fighter that likes to play off her back, fish for submissions, look for sweeps, etc. But I actually think the submission is pretty live here. Like, I don't mind, and I haven't bet Gatto yet. I'm waiting on FanDuel because FanDuel seems to always be off market. So I've seen plus 550 Melissa Gatto by submission. I do have interest in that prop. I'm hoping FanDuel maybe gives us plus 600 or something crazy. But I just think Cortez is definitely susceptible to like an arm bar or something with Gatto on her back. And Gatto does have a couple arm bars, a couple submissions off her back on her record. But I just think she's going to be the more physical fighter in there, more finishing upside. And this is a spot where I just think it's time to get off the Tracy Cortez train. I've backed Cortez by decision in 2 of her 3 UFC fights, and now I want to go against her in this matchup because I think Gatto is the better striker, and I think she has more finishing ability on the mat. So it's like Cortez has to bank those control time and do it for 15 minutes and stay safe for 15 minutes. So I know it's a home game for her in Phoenix, Arizona, but I actually have more interest in the underdog than Gatto.
You know, I like this guy. You know, you might be talking me onto something because, like, dude, like, I've been interested in Gatto. It's just, I'm just so worried about, you know, we're getting off on some big shots on the feet, and then we get held down, and we're not able to create that scramble. We're not able to get that sweep. And on a side note, how'd you score the Gaethje fight? Because we all agree, Cortez won round 1, no questions asked. Who won rounds 2 and 3?
So I am the wrong person to ask because, like I said, I did have a Cortez by decision prop on that fight. So I did score it for Cortez, but I was probably a little bit biased. So I don't know if I'm the right person to ask there.
Yeah, you are, because at the end of the fight, did you feel without a shadow of a doubt that you won, or did you think it was up in the air?
I think it was up in the air.
Okay, because I watched it this morning, and like first round, 100% Cortez.
Yeah.
But the next 2, I'm like, shit, I don't know. Like, I don't want to say Cortez lost it, but I do want to like say Gaethje definitely had some moments. And I think Gatto is a lot better than Gaethje, not to MMA math it up or anything, but I'm just saying that I see the openings there. And I do think Gatto's got a lot of potential. I'm just worried about a Carl Hosa, Sarah McMahon situation. Difference being is I don't have to lay minus 200 here on Gatto to find out. Yep. She is the dog. So at least we got that going in our favor. So, I mean, you know who I'm rooting for. I love my fighters like Gatto. So hopefully she gets it done here. Now, next up in the flyweight division, we got a matchup between Clayton Rodriguez. He's 7-1, taking on CJ Vergara, who is 9-3. Currently, they got it. Clayton Rodriguez minus 350. The comeback on CJ Vergara is plus 300. Now, let me just tell you this, man. I am so pissed off, John Kelly, because I had the chance to go out there and bet Clayton Rodriguez at like minus 2 something against Zaruk Adashev. And like when you go to the when you go to the baseball game and you bring your glove with you because you want to catch that fly ball, you want to catch a foul, you want to catch a home run. I wanted to bring my baseball glove with me to the arena because I wanted to catch Zaruk Adashev's head after Clayton Rodriguez spinning kick knocked him out. And even though I got to favor Clayton here, CJ Vergara is a much tougher opponent than Zaruk Adashev. No disrespect, that's just the facts. The thing about this kid, CJ, he impressed me on Contenders because the dude he beat Bruno. Like I get that. Okay, it was a 30-second finish or whatever. Like how much stock do you put into it? I saw that same dude Bruno Correa have like an honest fight with Mateus Nicolau, man. And then the fight with O'Day Osborne. I bet O'Day Osborne, and CJ made me sweat it, man. So respect. He's a Latino warrior that's gonna try his best to win this fight. I just like this kid Clayton. You know, he's the phenom fighting out of Team Nogueira. He's their top hope for a future world champion. The kicks, the athleticism, the get-up game, the takedown defense. I like everything about him. It's just at a price like this, UFC debut, fans are in attendance. Sometimes the UFC debuts don't always go according to plan. Sometimes, you know, they underperform. And you remember a fight between Tyler Santos and Marella Barella. Like, dude, I fucking bet Tyler Santos at minus 150. Like, you know that I would make that bet 10 times again.
I mean, she's looked like a fucking killer since then, though.
Minus 150 against Mara Romero Barella on Tyler Santos, and I lost. Yeah. Do you understand what I'm saying? So it's like, yeah, I got the better fighter here, but now we're not dealing with minus 150. We're dealing with minus 400. I'm going to sit back and relax. My pick is Clayton. I think he's got the much higher ceiling. I think he's got the much more potential, and I really like what he brings to the table. But CJ, he's got that spirit about him. He's going to try. He's a dog. He's going to go forward. He's going to test this kid. So it's going to be a good fight, but give me Clayton to get it done. No bet.
Yeah, I like that pick, and I like Clayton Rodriguez as well. For those that don't know, quick plug if you don't mind, I do a lot of work on Dana White Contender Series on my YouTube channel. I do a video for every episode on Dana White Contender Series, so I dive into these prospects quite a bit. So I feel like I have a pretty strong read, at least a better read than most people, because I literally watch like every single one of these prospects fights. And Clayton Rodriguez here is a guy that I favor dramatically over CJ Vergara. I do expect him to be a better striker, more powerful, super top heavy. The kicks that you mentioned, like the guy is just super powerful. He's going to put Vergara on the back foot. I do think he's going to land. I could see him winning the first 2 rounds and then maybe just cruising in the third if he doesn't get him out of there. And on the flip side, like Vergara is a guy that I didn't rate highly. I didn't expect him to win his Contender Series fight, and I didn't expect Vergara to look as good. And not that he looked stellar in his UFC debut, but to your point, like he won the 3rd round. O'Day Osborne was fading off into the 3rd. Vergara, that's the one thing about him, and that's what he has going for him in this matchup, is the cardio is going to be there. He's willing to fight a hard 15 minutes. Like, he does have good cardio. But at the same time, like, this is a guy that went life or death with Jacob Silva, was flash knocked out in that fight, dropped multiple times in that fight as well. So against a guy that's super powerful like Clayton Rodriguez, like, I got to go with the favorite here. It's just that, like you said, like, such a massive price tag to pay. Maybe put him in a parlay if you're building a big parlay. I don't mind that, because I do think he gets his hand raised. It's just that I'm not going to individually bet on Rodriguez at that price.
Well said, my man. And I just wanted to mention my dog Leo walked in during the Gatto breakdown, so maybe that's a sign.
There it is.
And
the belt stayed standing. The belt didn't fall, so we might have to get on Gatto here.
You see that, guys? You see that? We're making progress here. So 2 more fights to go, and I do appreciate your time, John Kelly. Y'all make sure you follow my boy at John Kelly DFS, and everybody smash that like button. Time flies when you're having fun, right? So second to last, penultimate fight of the evening, even though it's the second fight, but penultimate breakdown. We got Lupita Godinez, 7-2, representing Mexico, taking on Ariane Chorizo Carnelosi, who is 14-2, repping Brazil. Currently, they got it Lupi minus 185. The comeback on Ariane Carnelosi is plus 160. Interesting fight. Curious to hear your take. What you got for me?
Yeah, I think the wrestling is super clear here on the Godinez side. Like, Carnelosi doesn't defend takedowns very well. Na Liang was able to take her down 3 times in that fight. And yes, I know Carnelosi ended up submitting her, but I think Godinez is just a lot more clean in terms of the wrestling and the grappling. And Liang has pretty much no cardio outside of the first round. Historically, almost all of her wins are in the first round. She fades outside of the first round. She's kind of like the female version of Derek Minner. And I just don't expect Lupi Godinez to look like that in this fight. So where she is low volume, and I do respect the power of Carnelosi, I just think the takedowns are going to be there for Godinez. So I think she probably gets her hand raised and wins a 29-28 decision.
So I don't debate that the takedowns will be there for Godinez. We've seen Carnelosi taken down, and we've seen Lupi land multiple takedowns. So that part, no debate. Here's where I got my questions. What about the top control? Is Lupi going to hold her down? Is Carnelosi going to get back up? Because one thing about Carnelosi, she's got that Jessica Andrade style where, yeah, she might eat a lot of punches, but when it's her turn to give her punches back, these young ladies feel it, man. I mean, one thing I've always talked about in these women's divisions, at least now in the infancy stages, is that power can override technique a lot, as you've seen how far Jessica Andrade has gone. And I'm not convinced that Godinez is going to like some of these shots that are coming back at her. So to me, it's really about how much top control are we talking about on the Lupita Godinez side. Because on the feet, I don't think she's got the volume, my man. And on the feet, that's where Carnelossi can come out here and blitz her with these big combinations, possibly hurt her, possibly discourage her. And if, down the stretch, the takedowns do start to get stuffed, that's where I see Carnelossi taking over. So what kind of top control are you expecting here?
I mean, I'm not expecting it to be like super great. Like, I don't rate Godinez like as this stellar prospect or anything like that. It's just that, it's funny you mentioned Carnelossi being like an Andrade style fighter. In my breakdown, I literally said she's a Priscilla Cachoeira style fighter. So it goes right along in that same type. It's just a lower level version. It's like they'll eat 2 shots to give you 1 powerful shot. So if the fight does play out striking, that, yeah, I mean, the power of Carnelossi is super clear. I think Godinez is a little bit more clean in terms of the technicality, like especially going back to the debut of Carnelossi. You saw Angela Hill have a ton of success, pretty much boxing her face off, and she wasn't able to land a lot of those power shots. So I think Godinez could have some success with the boxing, but the volume, like you said, is super concerning. And that's why I didn't back Godinez at this price, like minus 190 or whatever she's at. I do think there's probably an argument that there's value on Carnelossi. It's just a spot that I'm not looking to get involved, just because I do expect her to land multiple takedowns. But to answer your question, I'm not convinced that she's going to be able to like blanket her on the mat. So it's not a fight that I'm going to bet.
Well, in that case, I'm going to go opposite way. I'm going to take Carnelossi to kind of pull away down the stretch, give up some takedowns, get back up, and then show off the difference in power and volume. But not confident either, because if she gets blanketed against someone who has shown that she can go out there, attempt, and land multiple takedowns, that's a concern. So, yeah, let's see what happens. So last but not least, kicking off the card, we got Journey Newsom in the bantamweight division. He's 9-3, taking on Fernando Fernie Garcia, who is 10-1. And currently, they got it Fernie Garcia minus 150. Comeback on Journey Newsom's plus 125. Everybody do us a huge favor. Smash that like button, hit the subscribe button, comment, share, retweet, all that stuff. Appreciate it. So as far as this matchup is concerned, listen, I haven't been high on Journey Newsom at all. I mean, he can definitely crack. I'll give him that. I mean, and he's been in there with some good guys. I know he can give it. I just don't know if he can take it too. And one thing about this kid, Fernie Garcia, he's a Mexican warrior. One thing about these Mexican warriors, man, they got some serious ass chins, and I know this dude can take it. Also comes out of a good camp in Fortis MMA. It's just I'm not in any kind of rush to lay this slight chalk price on someone that's unproven, but I'm also not trying to fade him either, because I think that Journey Newsom is 1 or 2 fights away from going back to the regional scene. No disrespect, that's just how I view it. So I see them coming out here and having a brawl. I just see Garcia being able to eat the harder shots, whereas I think that Newsom is a liability to get dropped. So give me Fernie Garcia. Not the most confident pick, and do not like the price either.
Yeah, so it's kind of funny. You said you're not looking to fade Fernie Garcia. So I am looking to fade Fernie Garcia. I'm just not sure if I'm looking to fade him with Journey Newsom, which I think is what you were getting at as well.
I meant in this fight.
Yeah, that's what I figured. But I'm in the same boat. Like I do think there's probably a good case that Newsom should be a small favorite here, and I am still kind of battling on whether or not I'm going to bet Journey Newsom. And I might come Saturday. We'll see. I got to think about things a little bit more, but my priors on Fernie Garcia were relatively low. He's another Dana White Contender Series guy that I taped quite a bit. I bet Joshua Weems actually on Contenders against him at like plus 300 or something like that. And the game plan was actually good of Weems. He looked good early and then he just randomly died. But Fernie Garcia, historically over the course of his career, he's a guy that's super heavy on his lead leg. He's susceptible to those leg kicks. He's never checked a single leg kick like his entire career. Like we've seen him almost finish by leg kicks in multiple fights on the regional scene. And then in terms of the striking, like pretty low volume, and he kind of just has to, he's very methodical. Like when he does throw a couple combinations, he has to reset every time. He has to reset his footwork. Anybody with any sense of counter striking and power is going to take advantage of that, because he doesn't really defend punches well either. So if he's constantly resetting like that with his hands down, taking a deep breath, getting back to center, somebody with decent counter striking is really going to take advantage of that. I don't know if Newson's the guy, but I do think Newson could land leg kicks here. I think he could have success there. I think Garcia maybe leans on his wrestling. He does have like a high school wrestling background, but Newson's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So it's like, I wouldn't be shocked at a submission either. The only thing I'll add is like, people are saying like Fernie doesn't have power. Like, I actually do think he has power, not because of the Weems fight, but there was multiple fights on the regional scene where, you know, if you just look up and down his record, oh, he's been to decision like 6 times in a row. He must not have power. If you watch those fights, he has his opponents hurt multiple times in almost every single one of those fights for whatever reason, whether it's just variance or unlucky or him just not being able to put the final stamp and get the finish. It doesn't mean he doesn't have power, because he is clipping those dudes. And when he lands clean, he is hurting those people. So I don't think he's a guy that doesn't have power. So I wouldn't be shocked if he can get Newson out of there. He's a guy who we've seen hurt multiple times, but at the same time, like skill for skill, I do think Newson is probably the rightful favorite here. We've seen Dana White Contender Series fighters that don't necessarily have a ton of skills be priced as a favorite as their debut. It's almost like an ATM fading those guys. So I'm just kind of wrestling back and forth, because it's like, I do want to fade Fernie. Everything lines up except for the opponent in Newson. So I don't know. I got to think through it, and maybe we'll talk more offline to see if we want to bet here on Newson.
Sounds good. Well, John Kelly, we did it. It's going down this Saturday night in Arizona. You got Charles do Bronx Oliveira putting his belt up against the line against Justin Gaethje, Rose Namajunas, Carla Esparza, Chandler Ferguson, OSP Shogun, Cerrone, Lauzon, Randy Brown, Khaos. I mean, this fight card is badass. John Kelly, thanks so much for taking the time to speak with me right here, right now on Half the Battle. They can follow you at John Kelly DFS. John, any message for the fans before we get out of here?
No, man, it was a lot of fun. Like I said, appreciate you having me on, and best of luck to everybody on Saturday. It should be an awesome card. And like I said, I don't think really up and down the card, I don't think we're going to be disappointed come Saturday.
I agree. So everybody, make sure y'all follow him at John Kelly DFS. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. You can follow me on Twitter at Best Fight Picks. Follow the podcast Instagram account at Half the Battle Pod. Subscribe to Half the Battle on iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube, Stitcher, Spotify. All the places where podcasts are found, we are available there. I'll be back next week working on an interview with Jailton Almeida. Just got to secure a really good interpreter, because I don't want it to be like I ask a question and they don't quite, understand what I'm saying. And this, I want like a bad, like, did you guys hear my Dawoon Jung interview where like that interpreter was on his shit, bro? Like, I want an interpreter like that. So until I secure that, we'll make it happen, and I'm working on it. So we're gonna get Jailton Almeida on here, and then I'll be back for the next card as well. So guys, thank you so much for all the support. I truly appreciate it. And until the next time, let's cash these bets.